Okay, here we are on page 26, taking a look at Mountains of Ice Interactive. So let me show you what we're looking at. So here we have the U.S. East Coast, Florida, Northern Europe, and Southeast Asia. And I'm just going to reference Florida because we all recognize what that state looks like. So uh, over here on the right, 200,000 years ago, this is what Florida looked like. So the blue means water, right? And the green means land. So you can see that 200,000 years ago, data says that uh, Florida was, the coastline was extended a lot further back. Then it takes a look at what would happen if the eastern ice sheet melted, and then what if the western sheet melted? So let's take a look. How does this resource show these areas looked 20,000 years ago? So 20,000 years ago, here's water, right? If the eastern sheet melted. 20,000 years ago, it was all land, right? So where it's ocean, it was all land in all four of those areas. So then you got to think about 20,000 years ago. What was it like back then? Well, if you stop for a minute and think about the temperatures that we saw up here, oopsie, be in my other handout. Uh, 20,000 years ago, the Earth was frozen. We were in an ice age. So where would all that water be? Where would all that water be that there would not be a coastline here? So the answer would be that, well, it was frozen. It was frozen in ice. Alrighty, and then we see what would happen if the western ice sheet melted. What would happen if the eastern sheet melted? So you see, looking at Florida, if the western sheet melted, the Everglades would be underwater, right? All these coastal cities, they would be no more. However, if the eastern sheet melted, you would see Florida would be completely underwater. So question number 2 asks, in what ways does sea ice serve as a canary in the mine shaft? In other words, how does it serve as a warning system? So when there's less sea ice, right, it just means that it's an indicator that temperature is also rising. So that's why they take a look at sea ice. Number 3, what is the worst case scenario of the world in these diagrams, right? So if this sheet melted, no more vacations in Florida for us. And then the last one asks, imagine that by 2100, the sea level has risen 2 feet. What effects would this have on humans? List and explain as many as you can think of. All right, so you can think about that and respond to that independently as you take a look at that diagram right there.